Espresso. It really is a full sensory experience, isn't it? All captured in one tiny cup. It's this whole ritual of sight and sound and that incredible aroma that promises something special. When we think of that perfect shot, we expect it to be bold, intense, powerful. Really, it's meant to be the purest expression of the coffee bean itself. But sometimes it's just bitter. And I'm not talking about that nice dark chocolate bitterness that adds a bit of complexity. I mean that harsh, unpleasant kind. The kind that just tells you, yep, this shot is ruined. So why does that happen? How can one shot taste so perfect and the very next one taste burnt and astringent? Well, today we're going to dive into the real science behind espresso bitterness to really understand what's causing it and, more importantly, how you can control it. To get that answer, we first have to understand what I like to call the taste of imbalance. And that all starts with the actual chemistry of bitterness in coffee. You see, bitterness isn't just one single thing. In coffee, it's actually this complex profile that comes from a few different sources. You've got chlorogenic acids, which are just naturally in the bean. Of course, there's caffeine itself, which is inherently bitter. The roasting process creates these new compounds called melanoidins. And then there are these other compounds that only really show up when we push the brewing process a little too far. And this brings us to a really crucial distinction. In small, controlled amounts, a certain kind of bitterness is essential. It adds depth, it adds structure, it helps create a balanced and really satisfying cup. But when it becomes harsh, it just dominates every other flavor. At that point, it's not a feature anymore. It's a clear signal that something is out of balance. That imbalance is often created moment by moment, which brings us to this critical idea, a race against time. So let's decode what's known as the espresso extraction curve to see exactly how this happens. I want you to think of pulling a shot as a sequence of events. First, the hot water extracts the acids. These are what give us those bright, fruity notes right at the beginning. They're followed by the sugars, which are responsible for that amazing sweetness and body in the middle of the shot. And the very last things to arrive? The bitters, those dark and often harsh tones. So this is where that race against time becomes so important. If a shot runs too long, or maybe the water moves too slowly through the coffee puck, you enter this zone of over-extraction. And that is precisely the point where bitterness starts to overwhelm all those delicate acids and sugars that you worked so hard to extract earlier in the process. Now, a really common misconception is that a bitter coffee is a strong coffee, but they are fundamentally different things. Strength is really just a matter of physics. It's the ratio of coffee solids to water. Bitterness, on the other hand, is all about flavor chemistry. It's entirely possible for a shot to be strong and beautifully sweet, or intense without being harsh at all. Okay, so let's explore the anatomy of a shot. We're going to look at the key variables that you can actually control that directly create, or hopefully prevent, that unwanted bitterness. Of all the variables you can tweak, nothing affects bitterness more than your grind size. If the coffee is ground too fine, water flows way too slowly, and that leads straight to over-extraction. But if it's too coarse, the water just rushes through unevenly. This creates something called channeling, and it results in this really jarring taste that is somehow both sour and bitter at the same time. It's the worst of both worlds. The roast level also plays a huge chemical role here. You see, darker roasts break down more of those chlorogenic acids and actually convert them into these intensely bitter compounds called phenylenedines. On top of that, the oily surface of a dark bean allows water to pull out flavors much more quickly, which means you can hit that bitter phase of extraction much faster. And of course, we can't ignore the machine itself. Its physics really are half the flavor. If you have unstable pressure, it can literally smash flavor compounds apart, pulling out some really aggressive bitterness. Temperature spikes over about 96 degrees Celsius can create these unpleasant metallic, almost burnt notes. Even just the way the water flows, a gentle ramp up versus an aggressive pump will create a totally different bitterness profile. So, now that we know the causes, how do we actually fix bitterness? Let's go through a practical checklist for diagnosing the problem and getting back to that balanced shot we're all looking for. All right, if your espresso tastes harsh, here's a checklist to follow, and you'll want to do it in this order. First things first, grind coarser. This is your most powerful tool for slowing down that bitter extraction. If it's still bitter, step 2 is to lower your brew temperature by a degree or 2. Third, try shortening the shot time. Just stop the extraction a little bit earlier. Fourth, you could try lowering your dose of coffee by about half a gram to adjust the ratio. And finally, never ever overlook the fundamentals. Always use freshly roasted beans and keep your machine meticulously clean. If you've tried all that and you're still getting bitterness, it might just be time to switch to a medium roast. It's really important to remember that you don't always need to make these huge, drastic changes. Honestly, sometimes just one single click, coarser on your grinder, is all it takes to transform a shot from harsh and bitter to balanced and sweet. And this really gets to the heart of the matter. Bitterness is a natural, even a desirable part of espresso. It's what gives the shot its depth, its weight, its character. The problem isn't bitterness itself, it's harsh bitterness. That's the real signal that the delicate balance we're aiming for has been broken. Understanding this science really empowers you to take control of the flavor. It gives you the tools to move beyond just pulling a shot and toward actually crafting an experience, one that's rich, sweet, and truly unforgettable. That perfect balance, it's not a mystery. It's a science that you can absolutely master.